Watch how Ed Miliband faces a brutal backlash in the House of Commons as tensions explode over energy policy. Is this a bold environmental stance or a costly mistake that could hit ordinary people hardest? As Andrew Bowie launches a fierce attack, accusing him of national self-harm, the clash quickly turns personal and intense. For families already struggling with bills, this debate feels very real. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us keep bringing you the hard-hitting stories that matter. Let's watch this explosive clip.
Shadow Minister Andrew Bowie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Drilling in the North Sea and scrapping carbon taxes on British manufacturing would kickstart economic growth, tackle unemployment, as well as prevent further deindustrialisation. Does the Secretary of State agree with those comments from the Labour Member of Parliament for Mid and South Pembrokeshire?
Mr. Speaker, what we're not going to do is fly in the face of the evidence. The answer to a fossil fuels crisis is not to double down on fossil fuels.
Mr. Speaker, it is extraordinary, mad. Even no other country on earth would deprive itself of the vast natural resource we are lucky enough to have at our disposal underneath the North Sea. The Jackdaw field alone could provide 250 million barrels of oil equivalent in natural gas to the UK, and it could be up and running by Christmas. But because the Secretary of State, it is stuck in limbo. It is utter insanity. His inaction is an act of national economic self-harm. When will he make a decision and act in the national interest?
Well, look, before he self-combusts, Mr. Speaker, as a result of the court decision, those projects are proceeding at risk, but I'll tell you the way we'll make a decision. I'm not going to comment on a live planning issue, but I will say in general, we will make a decision that is legally watertight. The last government made a series of decisions which were found, oh, no, they say, well, they don't care about the rule of law, and we saw that, Mr. Speaker, when they said we should rush headlong into a war with no regard for the impacts on our constituents.
Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Minister will know that at the moment the Government is putting through a bill about the duty of accountability and candour. One of his ministerial colleagues sat just down from him will confirm that it requires ministers to answer questions with candour. 3 members of this House asked the Minister what the payoff was for Mandelson several weeks ago, and he refused to answer. So I'd asked him to reflect on whether he acted with candour. And coming back to this question of whether he deserved a payout, isn't actually the truth that the government knows this tissue, this story, this suggestion that they were lied to and there's no possible way they could have found out the truth would be torn apart in an employment tribunal, and that's why he didn't want to go into it.
Yeah, good point.
That was not the rationale, and the documents will speak for themselves.
Rachel Blake.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This statement has truly been sickening. Does the Chief Secretary agree with me that the sickening behaviour and conduct of Mandelson is in part a symptom of structural misogyny? And will he use his office to drive out structural misogyny from Whitehall and Westminster?
My honourable friend is right to raise the bigger issues that are in question around the process of appointment and disclosure and deceit and the rules that are in place. Above and beyond all of that, unfortunately, is a country and a world in which the voices of women who are subject to male violence and the abuse of power and privilege is still rampant. And all of us, I think in any party, in any part of this House, would want to suggest that that is not the way in which we wish the world to operate, and we should all do what we can to change that. That's why this government is committed to issues around halving violence against women and girls. That's why we talk about how we tackle structural misogyny, whether it's at the heart of our political system or in business or elsewhere. And I know that my honourable friend and I share those ambitions, and will do all that we can to make that a reality.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The release of documents outlining what was known about Mandelson's association with Epstein is welcome. Mandelson's avarice, his business connections and his malign influence within the Labour Party are simultaneously why he was made ambassador and why he was useful to Epstein. Does my right honourable friend agree that we should be seeking to distance ourselves from flawed democracies that are drifting towards authoritarianism, such as the United States, rather than using those associated with sex offenders in order to strengthen such relationships?
My honourable friend will know from the statements of the Prime Minister and the documents being published today that he regrets having ever appointed Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States, and that in our country We rightly respect the rules that are in place that need to be observed, that there must be clear consequences for people who breach them. And as I've said in earlier answers, that even in our country, we have much further to go to tackle violence against women and girls and structural misogyny, and that we should all have a shared ambition for tackling that as quickly as possible.
Sir Julian Lewis.
The Chief Secretary deserves our admiration for always being calm and courteous, even in the most trying circumstances, but he really mustn't take us for fools.
Oh, yeah?
Peter Mandelson had a reputation as one of the most slippery and sleazy characters in modern British politics. The Chief Secretary confirms that the Prime Minister was warned about what Mandelson had done in continuing a relationship with Epstein after he had been sent to jail for abusing a young girl. He is saying that, well, the Prime Minister didn't know the depth of this relationship. Is he really expecting us to believe that a shallow relationship with a convicted paedophile is okay?
I would just say to the Right Honourable Gentleman that at the time of the appointment, there were public comments from Peter Mandelson, I think in a Financial Times interview, where he had said that his relationship had ended much earlier than documents now show was to be the case. On the back of the Cabinet Office reports about those newspaper stories, the Prime Minister had further questions put to Peter Mandelson, documents for which we will be able to publish in due course, and that's why the Prime Minister says that he regrets having believed Peter Mandelson's lies and wished he'd never appointed him in the first place.
The appointment of Lord Mandelson was not just a catastrophic error of judgment that has caused profound damage to this government's reputation. It was the result of a clique at the top of the party, as we have seen with the Morgan McSweeney and Labour Together scandal, for which I and colleagues on these benches have called for the Prime Minister and General Secretary of the Labour Party to launch an independent investigation into. So can the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister outline what structural safeguards are being implemented today to ensure that cronyism never again overrides the national interest in high-level appointments?
Well said. I refer my honourable friend to the list of changes that the government is undertaking from my statement earlier, from the work of the Ethics and Integrity Commission to a review of the business appointment rules, to looking at the role of lobbying and transparency to make sure there are consequences for the few people who do seek to breach those rules. And together, alongside with the Duty of Candour Bill, which has been mentioned in the debate so far, this will be the widest range of changes to our ethics and standards framework in many, many years, if not a generation. I will just reiterate, as I did in my statement, that the vast majority of public servants serve the public for the right reasons and adhere to the rules. But evidently, when there are those that seek to evade them, we need to ensure that we're more effective at catching that in the future.
Deputy Speaker, I find this faux outrage about Mandelson really astonishing. He was a man that was closely involved with the current Prime Minister, the leadership of the Labour Party, ever since Tony Blair, and very closely since 2020. They must have known his character. They must have known what he was like. In the documents that the government is now producing, will we know every piece of advice that was given to the Prime Minister by his officials and by the Foreign Office, and specifically, will there be a record of any verbal briefings given to the Prime Minister before he made this calamitous decision to send Mandelson to Washington? I think the public need to know why the Prime Minister, despite all the knowledge about Mandelson, felt the need to go ahead with this appointment.
To answer the Right Honourable Gentleman's question, the tranche of documents today that relate to the appointment and then the dismissal of Peter Mandelson as ambassador are inclusive of all of the documents held by government, bar those which have been held back by the Metropolitan Police for their criminal investigation. There are no other further documents that have not been published.
John Slinger.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Prime Minister rightly called for the removal of peerages from disgraced peers. So can the Chief Secretary set out to the House when we might have an update about the proposed legislation in that regard?
Can I thank my honourable friend for the question? As the House knows from previous statements on this issue. We want to ensure that where people break the rules, there are consequences for that behaviour. One of the areas where this was not the case was the appointment of life peerages in the other place, where there were no provisions for taking a peerage from somebody in any circumstance, which has been a problem in the past in relation to criminal convictions and other disreputable behaviour. It's right, therefore, that the government is working with the other place to bring forward legislation to give the authority and powers for that to happen in the future, and will be coming forward with those proposals in due course.
Smith.
Mr. Speaker, two Global Council clients benefited from direct government defence awards. There were Global Council staff flying to Washington parties to join Peter Mandelson. Could the Minister confirm that either in this bundle or in future documents there will be a rigorous view and report to Parliament of the background to those awards and to all of the parties? There'll be guest lists for those parties, just so that Parliament can see what happened and how we improve things and make sure that never happens again.
I can confirm that all other documents that are in the scope of the hung bull address that are not being published today will be subject to the Metropolitan Police and clearance from the Intelligence and Security Committee, published in the next tranche.
What you've just seen is more than a heated political exchange. It's a clash that goes right to the heart of how this country powers itself and supports its people. When Andrew Bowie accused Ed Miliband of taking an insane position, it wasn't just about scoring points. It was about two fundamentally different visions for the UK's future. On one side, you have the argument for energy independence, using resources like those in the North Sea to boost jobs, strengthen the economy, and reduce reliance on imports. It's a message that resonates strongly with people who feel the pressure of rising costs every single day. Because for many households, this isn't theoretical. It's about whether they can afford to heat their homes, fill their cars, or keep their businesses running. On the other side, Miliband's stance reflects a long-term strategy, moving away from fossil fuels and focusing on cleaner, more sustainable energy sources. He argues that doubling down on oil and gas isn't the solution, especially in the face of climate challenges. And for many, that argument also carries weight. The question is not whether change is needed, but how fast and at what cost. And that's where the emotional tension really builds. Because while politicians debate policy, people are living the consequences. Families are watching their bills climb. Workers are worried about job security. Businesses are facing uncertainty. And in moments like this, when answers feel unclear or incomplete, frustration grows. Inside the House of Commons, these clashes are intense, loud, and often deeply personal. But beyond the noise, there's a serious issue at stake, one that affects every corner of the country. Are current policies protecting people or putting more pressure on them? Are decisions being made in the national interest or driven by ideology? Miliband defended his position by pointing to legal processes and long-term planning. But critics argue that delays and indecision could cost the country dearly. And when strong words like insanity and self-harm are used, it shows just how high the stakes have become. This is where you come in, because ultimately these decisions affect you, your bills, your job, your future. Do you think the UK should be using its own natural resources to ease the pressure now? Or do you believe the focus should remain firmly on transitioning to cleaner energy, even if it comes with short-term challenges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice matters in this debate. And before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free, and it helps us keep bringing you the most powerful, unfiltered moments from UK politics. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next one.